question for you. Are you creating a real business? Are you ever likely to? Do you even care? If you do, stay tuned and I will let you into a secret technique that I use when I meet potential clients. I use it to decide what type of business I'm dealing with. So now you can use it to answer this same question for yourself about yourself. One of the big issues that small business owners or entrepreneurs face is the transition from one stage in their business to another. In the beginning, it's hard to know where you're going to be in 6 months from now, let alone in a few years. And people believe that they need to be at a certain stage in their business before they have to get serious, I guess you call it. Most commonly, this is based on certain criteria they have. So, i.e., they need to be making a certain amount of money first, or they need to have a certain number of customers, whether or not it's time to get an office or staff. The trouble comes when there's no plan in place before these things happen. And then when you're ready to make the transition, you realise that the way you've set things up so far won't support you. Depending on how you've structured things, it can mean the difference between dealing with an upheaval in your business that you just navigate through, call it growing pains, through to deciding that the leap to the next level is just too great, so you're just going to carry on as you are, right through to ultimately even becoming so disillusioned that you decide to call it a day. Ironically, the decision to close the doors is all too often not that of the entrepreneur, but due to weaknesses in the business that have exposed them to risks and cash flow problems. It tends to be circumstantial situation. The tax office, for example, is great at giving you just a little push you need to turn out those lights. So then, what is it that I do in these meetings and how can you use it? Earlier, I called it a secret. Now, it isn't a secret. It is only insofar as I don't tell people that I'm doing it in my discussions or Skype conversations as we do now.
Mom, that's why it's a secret. Jesus.
Yes, Babaloo, I know, thanks. I sum it up in my head so that I know what type of business I'm dealing with and to some degree what type of personality, so that I can keep the conversation to things that the person really needs to know rather than what I want to tell them. The businesses come in many forms, but to keep things simple, I work on a basis that there are 3 types of businesses that I come across each and every day. The first one is what I call a TVB. That's a business of tangible value. A TVB is one that is most likely to create the lifestyle that you want. Its success is measured based on currently being or having great potential to be very profitable, grow, and have enough cash to meet the needs of the business and you, and then some. In his book, Built to Sell, John Warrillow discusses such a business, and he describes it as having products or services that are teachable, repeatable, valuable to customers, and scalable. Now note, this doesn't have to be a traditional bricks and mortar business. There are many entrepreneurs right now working from home offices, some on the beach even, who have managed to create successful TVBs, but alas, they are in the minority. Now, I work with many of these businesses and they still have their challenges. They're just much better placed to handle them when they crop up. So if you fit into this category, well done you. You've got this figured out. So, what's the deal with the other 2 types of businesses? Usually it's one or other of the success measures that I mentioned earlier are lacking or erratic. Usually it's a lack of available cash on a consistent basis. So if you're not a TVB, what are you? So what type of business
have you created? We've established that a TVB, as I call it, a business of tangible value, is profitable or will soon be profitable, is poised for growth or has grown quite a bit, and it has good cash flow. So if you're not a TVB yet, I say yet, what are you? Well, they're the yin and yang of the business world. Now, you've probably heard these terms before. Business is, I can't even speak, a business that really is a hobby, or a hobby that could be a business. And that's really what these two are. So the hobo business is the hobby. You know, the owner thinks it's a business or calls it a business, but really it's a hobby, and I'll show you why in a minute. The boho business is pretty much like, I call it the unruly teenager. It has all the hallmarks and is poised for adulthood. But every so often, just as it slips into adulthood, it slips back again into acting like a teenager. In fact, to some degree, a bit of a hobo business again. So what are the common characteristics of the hobo business? Well, it's based on the skill or knowledge of the owner. So if they don't work, they don't get paid. 2, they do everything in the business themselves. It's quite common when people are start-up business because you're bootstrapping. But quite often this goes on for years because the attitude of the business owner is one of, why should I pay somebody when I can do it myself? They value saving money over saving time. Because it actually is a hobby business, funnily enough, they tend to start because of a hobby or a skill that the owner loves or is particularly good at, particularly something they may have done really well when they were in employment. But because it's based on a skill or knowledge from them specifically, they love it and they're passionate about it, almost to the detriment of concentrating on the more boring part of doing whatever they do to make a profit rather than to make other people or themselves happy, which I'm not against, but they shouldn't be mutually exclusive. Characteristic number 5, there's a good chance that in 5 years' time, it is likely that very little will have changed in that business. And that's assuming the business still exists. Typically, these type of businesses are sole traders, such as freelancers or independent consultants, professional service providers. Now, I'm not saying that all people in this type of business have these characteristics. They just tend to be the more common ones. So what about our boho business, our unruly teenager? Well, a boho business has all the hallmarks of a TVB, funnily enough, but it still does many things like a hobo business. It's often, if a hobo business realizes that's what it is and decides it wants to change, this tends to be the transition part. So it's where most of the change takes place. And boho businesses tend to have one foot in the hobo camp and one foot in the TVB camp. And it normally takes not a lot of work to shift it into a TVB. What are their characteristics? Well, also still based on the skill or knowledge of the owner. But this person tends to enlist outside help, or they will employ staff to support them. It just tends to be in areas that don't generate income, so they are being supported. Also, they do understand the value of leveraging their time, but they don't really want to spend the money. I can't afford it is a favorite phrase. So they tend to buy a lot of technology, software, and go on lots of courses, all in an effort to avoid paying for help if they possibly can. The consequence is they're frustrated by the day-to-day of their business because deep down they believe that they are not fulfilling their true potential, whether personally or professionally. They do have the ability to become, or some have already become, 6-figure plus businesses. But the way that they've structured themselves and the habits of the owner and the culture of the business means that often the more they grow, the worse they are financially. Typically, this business is one that does have a team and staff, as I've said, and they tend to still work around the owner. So you'll find that the owner often is a bottleneck. And this tends to be things like design businesses, website design, again, professional service providers, but where accountants are a very good example. You could have a couple of partners, for example, who do most of the high level stuff, and they have juniors maybe, or they just have admin staff, but everything needs to go through them before it goes out the door. If you want to learn more about this and delve a bit deeper into how your personality and how you run your business will show up in one of these three characteristics, be it a TVB, a hobo, or a boho business, I talk a lot more about it in my book. It's a shameless plug here. Firmer Figures, Fess Up or Mess Up. If you want to know more about it, go over to www.firmerfiguresbook.com and get yourself a copy.
Do what is right for you, but beware. Regardless of what business category you fit into, the most important thing is that you're true to yourself. Where you're headed is where you know you will be happy and fulfilled as far as you can know. So if, for example, you're a parent and you really want a way to earn so that you can be home for the school run, which was me, then that's what is right for you. But if you're wanting to step things up when the children get older, be careful that you're not sabotaging yourself from the outset. If you can be on top of your money regularly from day one, when you get busier or you expand what you do, you'll already be positioned to monitor your progress and not be panicking, because all you have is an out-of-date spreadsheet. Now, I go into much greater depth on this subject in my book, Firmer Figures, Fess Up or Mess Up. And if you want to find that, go to my site and grab yourself a copy. Now, if you found this useful, then please do share with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, you don't have to be a financial expert to be the financial leader in your business. If you want to know more, hop over to www.financialgymforbusiness.com and sign up to get access to my gifts, tips and updates. And I really need to put my teeth in before I say gifts. Anyway, fess up or mess up, this is Georgette Rowland saying have an amazing week.